It is my distinct pleasure to introduce our first speaker this morning to talk about the real state of the market. What's really going on here in South Florida, not just what you read in the newspaper or on the blogs. Because not only is this gentleman a member of Miami, a practitioner, he earns his living from listing and selling real estate. He's a past president of the Miami Association of Realtors, past president of Florida Realtors, and the 2012 president of the National Association of Realtors. Please give a warm Miami welcome to our very own Moe Veissi.
That and $1.25 doesn't buy me a cup of coffee at Starbucks, but I'm a happy camper. So I got up this morning and I looked through a couple of newspapers and I ripped out some articles because I thought they were pretty, but you got enough stuff up here to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Or an interesting segue into what we're going to talk about, which is a little bit about the real estate market in Miami and how these ridiculous prices are going to be phenomenal prices 20 years from today. I was reading the Miami Herald. It said total wealth reaches a record. The interesting part of this, it talks about the wealth of an individual. We're over $88 billion in America today. The principal amount of that build-up wealth comes from, where do you think? From real estate. And most principally from the equity build-up in a single-family home. About 62% of us own a home of some type in America. Let me give you a couple of statistics that are kind of interesting before I tell you about rising home prices, lifting U.S. wealth, even as stocks fall. Now, I don't know whether you all are really good at the stock market. I couldn't make a breakfast meal out of the money that I earned in the stock market over the last 10 years. And finally, it talks about the youth influx revives cities across America. I want to talk to you a little bit about that. The average homeowner in America, the people that most of us deal with day in and day out, their major equity base is their single-family home. A renter in America today has an equity base of about $7,000 or $8,000. A homeowner in America today has an equity base of about $150,000 to $170,000. Now, it's not only the house that compiles that, it's the longevity of the investment in real estate. If you like short-term plays, then the stock market is for you. Maybe Vegas is for you. But if you like a long-term commitment and real return on invested dollar, there's no place better than the right location with a good piece of real estate. So I flipped around this morning taking a look at some of the numbers. I didn't want to go back all the way to the period of time that I started in the business. I went back about 20 years. And I found that the average home price about 20 years ago in Miami-Dade County was around $125,000. You do the math now. In 2015, the average home price in Miami-Dade County, not the mean, but the average, was about $275,000. So you're talking roughly $50,000 in equity buildup. If you do the math and you take your 150 investment divided by 20, and then simply apply that investment criteria, you're going to see that you got an annual return in the vicinity of about 25% a year, cash on cash. Now, unless you got an Amazon when it was $1.50 a share, or unless you were buying Yahoo when it was 50 cents, You probably have not made that kind of consistent return on any investment at any time, notwithstanding the fact that you got shelter, you brought up a family, you had an investment in long-term equity in a piece of property, you had real wealth, stamina, you had a commitment to long-term investment, not just in real estate, but in your community, your state, and your nation. The reality of real estate is that it allows you that. I'm not telling you that 100% of your portfolio investment should be committed to real estate. I'm telling you that the portion that you want for equity buildup in long-term investment is absolutely in real estate. Now, we know the philosophies of real estate, how important they are to the economy. We understand how important real estate is to the growth of the nation. We know that out of the last 6 recessions, 5 have spiraled out of recession, principally due to a healthy home and development and peripheral real estate activity. We know that, and as I just told you, homeowners across the nation have a much higher equity base, which allows them funds for retirement, educating their children, starting new businesses, and a myriad of other things that you do with real estate across the board. We know that even in the worst of times, 2007, 8, and 9, when the market was really tight, that real estate provided every 2 sales provided for 1 job, and in that particular period of time, your community of real estate development and sales and resales provided for over 2 million jobs in the United States when jobs were at a premium. We know, too, that every time you sell a house, about $55,000 to $60,000 of peripheral business is generated from the sale of that house within the first 12 months. I'm not talking about the house itself. I'm talking about furniture and roofing and landscaping and painting and carpeting and all the other accoutrements that go towards that house. There's a real economic value when you put people in a home. But I'm going to give you the other side of that, and then I'm going to pronounce that with a couple interesting facts. Real estate does something else for the fabric of society and the social and cultural ethnicity that you live in. Real estate binds a community together like no other investment does. We know statistically that people who live in a home, real statistics, real information, that live in a home are healthier than those that rent. We know their kids are healthier. We know that marriages last longer in a home. We know that kids go on to get better grades in high school and better college educations and grades than if they weren't in a home. We know that in the community there's less crime because more people are committed to that particular community and that home. Real estate binds not simply the economic future of the country, the state, and the community, it binds the social and cultural fabric of the people that you sell that property to. Now you say to yourself, wow, that's pretty evidentiary all by itself. Not simply because real estate is a decent investment long term, but because the longevity and the appreciable value of real estate can be established long term. So I'm sitting with the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, and I say, Lawrence, how long before we get out of this recessionary cycle? This was in 2011. And he sits down with me and he says, well, we know the trough, the bottom end of the cycle was about 2009. By the way, I have Miami Herald, these headlines, I saved them in 2008 and 2009 that said, go any place but Miami, the oversupply of inventory, 20,000 units in Miami will take at least 20 years before they're sold out. By 2012 or 13, of those 20,000 unsold condominium and single-family house units, we had about 800 left. It took us 4 years to consume real estate in this community in South Dade County. The interesting part long-term is that for all intents and purposes, if you're looking for stability and commitment, not simply in economics, not simply in social or cultural values, but just a good deal, you're not going to make a better deal than investment in real estate. Not unless you're really lucky at the crap tables or at the tables at Wall Street. Let me give you some trends that we follow. I've got a small office, but I've got a couple folks in that office like me that like to look out over the long haul. I want to give you some things that I think are on the future in the future for real estate in a community like Miami, which has become very vibrant, very global, very influential. So some of the trends that I think you're going to see, the first one is, with all of the development that's occurring today in Dade County, and especially in the Tri-County area, you're going to enormously increase the tax base of this community. And by increasing the tax base of this community, you're going to have a more vibrant community. Your transportation and basic infrastructure is going to be completely impacted by, hopefully, political processes that have the financial capability to attack them. Number two, in multicultural communities, especially those that have a commitment to the longevity of the relationship of their own culture, you'll find that a lot of places, especially in Texas, Southern California, and now in Miami, are beginning to view investment in real estate in a different fashion. Instead of buying a single unit, now people are looking for duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, and larger. And they're housing multi-generational families in one structure. You got mom and dad, maybe mom and dad in-laws. You've got maybe children that haven't left the nest yet. And you've got the owner of those structures. I wouldn't be surprised to see us, especially in a very large Hispanic community like Miami generates, the kind of activity in those kinds of multi-structures that we see long-term to house these folks. The third thing I think we're going to see is vacation homes that are across town. Look, the concept of a vacation may simply be living in Pinecrest and having a one-bedroom on the sand in Miami Beach. It's awful easy to get away for a 3-day vacation if you pack a knapsack and drive 45 minutes to a place that's completely different than what you've been living in for the last 2 or 3 or 4 months. Look for cross-town vacation units that are going to become especially popular in places like Miami that can afford you those kinds of differences in cultural and social concepts within a short period of time. Look for second and third tier cities as Miami grows and becomes more effective with respect to the folks that exist here. Look for places like Deerfield Beach. Look at Boynton, up in the northern parts of Broward and Palm Beach, to become second-tier cities or bedroom communities to the downtown areas and employment hubs in Miami. And as the infrastructure changes and high-speed carriers become more utilized by the public, you're going to see more and more second-tier cities emerge. I think you're going to see a lot more renters than you have in the past. Not just millenniums, but I think you're going to see boomers who have experienced the worst real estate market ever, since historically we have been keeping tabs, losing equity in their one big and major investment in a single-family home, and now getting it back, maybe thinking to themselves, hey, time for me to cash out, put my $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 into a safe investment, and rent. I get the stop sign. And finally, I think you're going to see what I call Tropotech surge in South-Dade County, and especially in Miami-Dade County. Tropotech is a concept of millenniums who want and understand technology, but also want and understand that one of the things they really appreciate and love is fun. When you couple those two, you get places like California and Florida. And Florida is making a strong push for technology. I'm going to give you one last thing and I'm going to close it. We have 75 million baby boomers in America. 75 million. I am the top end of the baby booming group. So, for all intents and purposes, the majority of those boomers have one upward sale left in there, one transaction left in them, and then the rest will be sideways and down. But the interesting part of the boomers is, guess what? They're not dying. They're hanging around. So even if they simply rent or trade sideways or down, they're still in the real estate market. Now I want you to couple that with 85 million millennials between 18 and 35 years old who are just beginning their real estate investment process. And again, it doesn't make any difference whether you're renting or you're buying, you're still involved in a real estate transaction. That, folks, is 150 million people in the real estate market over the next 10 to 30 years. We have 330 million people in this country. That's 1 out of every 2 that you'll be doing business with. And we haven't talked about the foreigners, we haven't talked about the investors from out of country, we haven't talked about the scared money and the funny money. You're going to find that Miami and Southeast Florida will be, if not the most vibrant real estate market in the world, one of the top 5 for a very long time. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it.